from Afghanistan. I'm a master. I graduated from master's program of AC, American University of Central Asia. Sorry, I'm a bit nervous. And I'm very happy to be here today and representing you my a master thesis that I did at the American University of Central Asia. So my study is about the impact of women's education and employment on their experience of domestic violence in Afghanistan for the year 2015. Is there anyone changing the slides? Yeah. As you all know, that domestic violence is a very globally prevalent problem. And statistics indicate that 1 in every 3 women have experienced domestic violence at least once in their lifetime. And this problem is mostly common in countries with low level of development, especially countries like Afghanistan. And statistics indicate that in Afghanistan, 87% of women have experienced domestic violence based on the United Nations statistics. Don't change it. Yeah. So the domestic violence is experienced in terms of mostly by the intimate partner in terms of physical, emotional, and economic violence. Because I'm coming from an economics background, those who are from economics might ask, so what is the relationship of this topic with economics? There are very serious implications of this problem. First of all, domestic violence, as you all know, it directly affects women's health, and through them, it also affects their family, especially the dependent children of them. Also, on the societal level, it's a cost on the society because of the loss of labor productivity of women, as well as it's also a cost on the sectors who are dealing with the domestic violence victims. So statistics indicate that 2% of the global GDP, the cost of domestic violence has been 2% of the global GDP, which is amounted to $1.5 trillion. So therefore, I think it's a very important topic, even if you're coming from like more kind of like mathematics or statistics background. It's very important for us to study it when we have the means to do that. Can you change the slide? So coming to Afghanistan, as I have already mentioned, that 87% of women has experienced domestic violence, but you should know that these are only the reported cases. There are also, for example, there might be, there are a lot of cases that women do not report because it's a very sensitive issue and very intimate issue. And also due to some cultural beliefs, they do not want to even go to the police or justice departments to ask for example, for justice. That's why this graph shows that in first half of 2013, 4,153 cases of domestic violence has been recorded by the Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commission, and they have, Afghan women have experienced domestic violence in forms of economic violence, verbal and psychological violence, sexual violence, and physical violence. According to the background that I have given, we can now understand that it's a very serious issue. So in order to combat this problem, I just wanted to explore the impact of women empowerment factors, such as education and employment, how education and employment is affecting like the position of women in the household. Can like educated women or employed women become lesser victims of domestic violence or not? So as you know that before the second takeover of Afghanistan by the Taliban, education in Afghanistan had for girls and for women had a very like drastic development, like a tenfold development, tenfold progress, and school enrollment of girls increased from 2001 to 2018 from 0 to 2.5 million girls in schools. And employment, even though compared to other countries, women employment in Afghanistan is very low, but still because of the increasing in their education level, the employment was also in an increasing trend. Now I must emphasize that the data that I'm giving you is before the second takeover of Afghanistan by the Taliban. But for now, we you all know that the condition is not as this data is representing. So because there is very scarce literature on this topic in countries, in developing countries, especially in Afghanistan, that's why it can greatly contribute to the literature. Also, I'm using a mixed methodology to find answers for my questions, which is, does knowledge or education actually empower women in the household? And the second one is that to what extent do employed women experience domestic violence compared to unemployed women? You can go to the next slide. So the theoretical framework is that there were many scholars who are studying household settings or marriage settings, and the most famous ones are Baker and Samuelson. They are studying like marriage setting and household setting in terms of an economic context. Baker is arguing that marriage market is in equilibrium. It means that everyone is married to someone who can maximize their utility. It means that the couples who are married together, they are they are better off. And Samuelson is arguing the same thing, and he is suggesting that a family is a unit, and they have the same the common preferences and the same budget constraints, and they are working in order to make each other better off. This is like very old and very preliminary topic of like bringing household settings into economic context. But the more modern scholars, they have criticized this idea, and they said that a marriage market or we can say household settings and the relationship of two people in the household is not always like they are not always working in order to make each other better off, and the well-being of, especially well-being of women in a house, it depends on their power dynamics and especially on their bargaining power. And discussing domestic violence and the effect of empowerment factors such as education and employment, they have discussed that education and employment in the household can have either protective effect or they can have like a worse effect due to male backlash model. What do they mean by protective effect? It means that when women are getting more educated, they can have like freedom of thought, freedom of speech, and also they become financially independent. So in one side, it kind of protect them from the domestic, from the violence by their intimate partner, because it gives them more resources, it gives them more connection, it gives them more like ability to defend their own rights. But on the other hand, because of the response of men to women empowerment and due to male backlashes, women education or employment in some cases can actually make them more prone to domestic violence. It is mostly common in the cases that men or their partner feel insecure when their partner is more educated or like more educated than them, or they have an income of their own. So in order to enforce their power or enforce their authority on women, they resort to violence, and it makes women even more prone to domestic violence. So another sort of theory is suggested by Agarwal that they are suggesting that this domestic violence and discussing domestic violence is a very complicated issue. We cannot, like, we're coming from an economics background, we cannot quantify everything. So therefore, there are a lot of other factors such as beliefs, thoughts, and relations, family. These things are also very influential. So when we are studying this topic, we should also consider these other things. So I'm not going very deep into literature review because it's a very long topic, but I can give you a very summary of the literature review that, as I have explained to you, that the literature is also agreeing with the theoretical framework that the well-being of women in the household that depends on their bargaining power, and the effect of education and employment also can have protective effect, or also can have a reverse effect on their well-being because of the male backlashes. And these studies also come from the context similar to Afghanistan, from countries like Zambia, like India, like Turkey, like Iran, like countries with the similar context. So until now, you have understood that my dependent variable that I'm interested in is domestic violence, and the two independent variable, my interest variables are education and employment. And for that, we also have to control for other variables, for other factors that affect on the domestic violence. So the control variables in literature is husband's education, husband's employment, family status, marital status, number of children, not marital status, that's a mistake, sorry. Number of children, location, and income, because we are already talking about married women. So the methodology that I'm using is the logit probit. No, it's not the methodology that I use, but the methodology that they have used in literature. Logit probit, IV decomposition. So what is the limitation of the literature review is that they are neglecting the multidimensionality of the issue. As I have already mentioned, that it's a very complicated issue, and only by like quantifying quantifiable factors, we cannot actually define it. And they also failed to address the selection bias. I'm sorry, it's very like, yes, it's a very kind of economic topic, and if you are coming from the economics background, you might understand each term, but if you're not, so I'm sorry for that. Yeah. Okay, you can go on. So in order to study this topic, I'm using survey from Demographic Health Survey, a data set from Demographic Health Survey of Afghanistan. It's a survey done in 2015, and they are mostly asking about issues like family planning or family health or domestic violence and these factors. And these are in this table, you can see all the variables that I have included. Like they are asking like several questions about violence, if the woman has experienced emotional violence or less severe violence, sexual violence. And I have combined all of them and made one variable called violence, and that's my dependent variable. And other variables are women age, women education, household size, and husband years of education, number of children, women age at marriage, men age at marriage, women employment. Can you go to the next slide? Husband age, husband employment. And because we have different ethnicities in Afghanistan, I have also included the ethnic variables such as Pashtun, Tajik, Hazara, Uzbek, and others. Also wealth, and also some male dominance indicators, such as if women are asking for permission to get medical help from their husband, or if they need money, or they ask for that from their husband, and decision on women health and decision on household purchases. Also the location variable, and early marriages and childhood violence. Can you change the slide? There are some very interesting insights that I got from the data, is that when I'm comparing my dependent variable with the interest variables, for example, the first graph shows the correlation of education level and average experience of violence. So it shows that as the education level is increasing, the domestic violence is decreasing. But on the other hand, when employment is you can see in this graph, the blue one are the employed women and the red one are the unemployed women. So you can see that the level of like different kinds of violence, less severe violence, emotional violence, or severe violence, for the employed woman, the violence is more compared to unemployed women. It's a very interesting insight that I got from the data, and I have explanations for this in next slides. So as I have already explained, I'm using a mixed methodology, logit probit for the binary variable, and propensity score matching to address the non-randomization in the data, and qualitative methodology because of the multidimensionality of domestic violence. So this is the model, and because the violence itself is a binary, it's 1 or 0. That's why I'm using logit probit, and the propensity score matching, because if we consider educated women with uneducated women, their only difference is not their education, right? They also have other differences. So in order to address that selection bias and non-randomization, I'm using this propensity score matching method as well. Okay, can you go to next slide? Also, because it's a very multidimensional issue, I'm also doing qualitative research. So I have interviewed 5 Afghan women, like in a semi-structured, in-depth interview. And I have asked them about like their experience of domestic violence. And the result is also included at the end of the research in order to complement the quantitative part. So this is the result that I got by the quantitative part. The result for logit and probit, it indicates that each year of schooling decreases the probability of being a victim of domestic violence for women. On the other hand, being employed also has a positive impact on being like prone to domestic violence. Can you go? So these are all other control variables. Because of the shortage of time, I will not go in depth on each of them. This is the propensity score matching, which is also like it shows the same result as the probit result. It shows that the average treatment on education is negative, meaning that if the more educated women, they have they have lesser, they are lesser victims of domestic violence. But if they are employed, they are more victims of domestic violence. And the qualitative method, actually, the qualitative result actually explains this, because as I was talking with the women in person, they were explaining like how their level of education and employment is actually affecting them. And they were saying that in most cases that they had a different level of education compared to their husband. There were a lot of conflicts between them, and sometimes this conflict even resulted in violence. Also, they were saying that because of the tradition and cultural beliefs, even that I have education, because of my family-in-law or parents-in-law, I cannot, for example, go to work. Or some of them are working, were working in the hospital, and they were saying that if I go like shifts during nights, they will not agree with me. So this makes it more like the conflict between the husband and wife increases because of that. So the conclusion is a finding of both approaches indicate that education is an influential factor in reducing domestic violence. However, employed women are more exposed to domestic violence compared to unemployed women due to my study. So factors such as couples' education gap, social norms, perception, family intervention, they all influence women's employment. And limitation of the study as that there might be some biases because domestic violence is a very sensitive issue, and women who are asked for domestic violence, they might not have revealed the real scenario. And the other thing is that yeah, the qualitative study, you know that it should be done in person, and you should know the person, you should see the person and should see all the feelings affiliated. But because I was not in Afghanistan, I was here, I conducted that online, so that's also a limitation. So based on my study, the policy recommendations is that first of all, women's access to education should increase, especially in the situation, in the condition of Afghanistan right now. I'm not talking to the Taliban because they are not, they don't agree with women education. I'm talking to like NGOs and human rights organizations, human rights defenders, to help Afghan women get more education and make the Taliban government to open schools for girls and provide emergency education programs for Afghan girls and support online education. That right now Taliban cannot control online education if like NGOs and this human rights organization could in some way provide online education for girls. So there should be domestic violence and women rights awareness campaigns. So as we have seen that only like educating women about their rights cannot solve the problem. Both genders should be educated about the issue, because the more women is educated and the more her husband is not educated, the more conflicts will be between them. So it kind of creates problem. Also promote gender equality through media outlets and community influencers, include domestic violence as a strictly punishable crime in the country's legislation. Well, this is something that might not be able, like, might not be realized right now because of the Taliban regime, but maybe in the future, if someone could work on that. And improve women employment, provide funding for women-led businesses. There are a lot of women-led businesses in Afghanistan that they really need funding. And in order to like make women more economically independent, it's a very good strategy. So some organizations who are operating in Afghanistan, they could also, in order to fight with the Taliban organization, they could also make this policy to hire only women staff and improve workplace opportunities for women. Thank you. Yeah. Yes, thank you very much for your question. The first time that I got that result, it was also interesting for me. But as I did more study, like as I already mentioned in theoretical framework and literature review, that in the cases that women do not have already a bargaining power, they are, for example, like recent employment might make them more prone to domestic violence, because in like traditional societies where men believe that women just should stay at home, and these problems happen when for married women, those like girls who are with their parents, they as you see that the more they educate, the more they are educated, the more they are less prone to domestic violence. But as they get married and they start like working, because of the traditional beliefs that women need to stay at home and need to take care of the household chores and the children. So it's very hard for them to kind of manage these things. And that's why in most cases, also their husband is also influenced by other like family members, and they are forcing them to make their wives stay at home. If a woman is not kind of complying with that, they become domestic violence victims. So it all depends on the family relations and the relationship of both of the couples. And as I have explained in qualitative part, that some of the women who are victims of domestic violence, they were saying that like we don't have like they don't have kind of equal educational levels with their husband. For example, some women, they had higher education compared to their husbands, and they were saying that the issues that I understand, he does not understand. So that's why this creates a lot of problem between them. And they were saying that like this like human rights issues, human rights organizations or women rights organizations, their main focus should be on educating both genders about their rights, about women's rights and men's rights, because in Afghanistan it's usually women who are targeted by these organizations, but it did not have a very positive impact, because when woman is educated about her right, but her husband is not, then this creates a lot of conflicts in the household. Yes. Thank you. Mhm. Yes, that's also a good question. So, yeah, like generally when we think that the more educated the woman, they like the higher chances that they get employed. But there are cases that when like in Afghanistan, women, if they are educated, they are more aware of like of their rights and all of the issues in their households. uh, and they do not get like they do not become victims of domestic violence as far as their husbands is okay with that and with them going to work. But the problem of employment comes when the husband is not agreeing with that, or the husband family is not agreeing with that, and mostly in the sectors such as healthcare sector or sectors that need like a lot of labor from women. I mean, they not a lot of their pre presentation. For example, in the hospitals, they need to be, for example, they have to do shifts during the day or during the night. So it's hard for their family to accept that, and then when woman is not listening to their husbands, it makes them like more of a subject of domestic violence. Yes. Mhm. You mean after when they experience violence? So we have different departments that can address domestic violence. For example, they can go to the police to file their complaint, and from there they can go to justice. But the problem is that mostly when they go to the police department, the people in police department, they are kind of convincing women that it's your own problem. You should accept most of the things that your husband asking for. So in most cases, even their file is not proceeded to the justice department or these other departments for them to gain their rights. Yes. Yes.
Woman, middle-aged woman, young woman.
In terms of ethnicity, yeah, I found some differences that women coming from Pashtun ethnicity, they are more prone to domestic violence compared to women from, I compared all these ethnic groups, for example, Hazara, Tajik, and Uzbek. And I have found out that women who are coming from Hazara ethnicity, they are less prone to domestic violence compared to Pashtun women. And same is true with Tajik and Uzbek. But in terms of age, I have only considered from 15 to 49 age of women, and I did not have like several categories for their ages. Yeah.
That will be the last question because we don't have enough time, but you can ask.
Can I ask very quickly? Thanks for giving a voice to the women of Afghanistan, especially nowadays. Very interesting presentation. I just had a practical question. I'm working for UCA, and we keep trying working with Afghanistan, especially with women, and it's not easy, as you can understand. And well, I should probably not say that, but we're about to fail in one of the projects because of the current situation. We cannot contact the women and interview them. And I wanted to know how, according to your experience, how strict the government is regarding the online interviews control. Is this something you would recommend, or we should forget about that as well?
I think with online interviews and sessions, they cannot control that. It's
cannot.
like, no, they cannot control that because many other organizations, especially educational organizations for girls, they conduct a lot of classes and like fellowships and mentorships for women online, and the government cannot control that.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Atefa. We'll continue with our second presentation, Ahmad Barlas from University of Greifswald. His presentation is
Good
titled
morning to everyone.
and Poverty Among Rural Households in Afghanistan. Ahmad, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, you can begin.
Okay, I will try to share my slides if possible.
We can see your screen, Ahmad. But we can't hear you. Can you hear me? Ahmad, can you turn on your microphone? Okay, can you say something?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. We can see your screen.
Yes, now it. Okay, okay, great. Good morning to everybody, and thank you so much for organizing this conference and giving me the opportunity to present one of the research where we recently conducted in Afghanistan. It's about the political change and the poverty among rural households in Afghanistan. It's from a district in Balkh province in the north of Afghanistan. Just to give you an introduction about the context, what's happening in Afghanistan before the collapse, especially in the context of poverty, around half of the population was living under the poverty line. When the Taliban came into power in August 2021, the situation, especially economic and humanitarian situation, got worse, and there are many reports indicating and highlighting this issue. For example, ILO in 2022 reported that close to 1 million people lost their jobs just since August 2021. And also, several months after the collapse, UNDP reported that 97% of the population below live below poverty line, and the UN also reported that 95% of the female-headed households cannot meet their basic needs. These are the main reports. There are many others available and highlighting that there are economic and humanitarian issues in Afghanistan. And in the context of the case area where I conducted this study, it's in Balkh province, located in the north of Afghanistan. It's one of the largest provinces in Afghanistan. It more than it has 15 districts in Marmul district, which is at around 10,000 population located in this district. But in Balkh province, 1.5 million people live in the whole province, majority in the center of the city, which is Mazar-e Sharif. But this study conducted in Marmul district in a rural area in Balkh province. I mainly considered two research questions for this study. The first question would be, what are the key factors of poverty among rural households in Afghanistan, and also how has the overall poverty rate changed among households in Afghanistan? I conducted two-phase data collection in Afghanistan. Actually, the preliminary title for this study was just to understand and estimate the determinants of poverty in Afghanistan. I conducted this survey before the collapse. It was in June 2021. In the first phase, I surveyed 279 households in Marmul district. After data cleaning, I excluded some questionnaires, and because of incomplete information, at the end, after the cleaning, I had 268 observations, and for this data set, I ran a regression analysis and also calculated poverty indexes. When the collapse happened or the Taliban came into power, I decided to bring some changes to the title and plan to conduct the second survey with the same household just to estimate the poverty changes after the collapse. So I organized the second round of the survey with the same households in Marmul district, and it was in January 2022, only a few months after the collapse. When unfortunately, when we went to the survey, to the study area, only 100 households took part in the study because of insecurity issues and uncertainty at that time. The majority of the families decided to not participate in the second phase. So we cleaned the 100 questionnaire, and at the end, I only calculated the poverty index for the second survey. For the model, I used and applied different indexes and approach. For example, the first one is Gini coefficient. I estimated the Gini coefficient to look for income inequality before and after the collapse. And also for poverty, I used a well-known model by FGT in 1984. This function contains three indexes: poverty hit count, poverty gap, and squared poverty gap. And the last is the I ran a logic model to check or estimate the determinants of poverty among rural households in Marmul district. So this is the variables which I used and measurement items. Dependent variable is poverty. It is a dummy or binary variable, only 1 and 0. I also have many independent variables, for example, household age, gender, employment, education level, number of female, number of male, and like literacy ratio, remittances, access to banking service, land size, and yeah, this is the independent variables. It's some characteristics of the household. For example, the average age of the household is 44. The household size is 7.5, and also household composition is male is 4 and female is 3.5. Education level is, as we see, at least 2 people is still living illiterate in the households, 3.5 people high school, and only 0.25 people with bachelor degree. I also asked about masters and PhDs. Unfortunately, we do not have people with those degrees in these households. Number of employed, at least 1 people is employed in male people is employed in every household, and female, it's unfortunately much less than male in terms of employment. And in terms of unemployment, as we see, here's a higher gap between unemployment rate between male and female. This is the income of the household before and after the Taliban regime. For monthly income, as we see, it's 12,800 Afghanis. Before the Taliban, it's maybe $160 if we change into dollar. And after the Taliban regime, it's $8,900, which is 30% decline in the household income. And for income per capita, it's around 1,900 before the Taliban, and also declined to 1,300 after the Taliban. Also highlights 30% decrease in household income per capita at household level. So this means that after the Taliban, after the collapse, the economic situation got worse in rural areas, and the majority of households lost their jobs or income sources. It's a contribution of income sources to the total income. As we see, we have different income sources: farming, livestock, salary and wage, remittances, and total. It's different, but there are some changes. For example, in salary and wage before the Taliban, it's 70%, but after the Taliban, it's 0.63, 7% decline in salary and wage. And also in remittances, as we see, the amount of remittance before the Taliban is 3,000. After the Taliban, it's 2,500. But as we see the shares, it shows it's 24% before, but it's 29% after the collapse. It means that now families at rural area also more dependent to remittances than before the Taliban, because they lost some domestic income sources. So now they are looking for foreign or migrants to send them money. Just supporting the basic needs and other stuff. This is the estimation for inequality. It's Lorenz curve. It's before the Taliban. This is the Lorenz curve of or income inequality before the Taliban, and the second graph it's after the Taliban. It indicates an increase in income inequality as well, because of the policy issues and also the collapse which happened in Afghanistan. For example, the majority of the elites and former government employees and also left Afghanistan or unemployed, and the majority of women lost their jobs. So this may cause to increase inequality among the household. It's the poverty index. I estimated 3 indexes: poverty hit count, poverty gap, squared poverty gap. Before the collapse, for poverty hit count, it's 0.77. After, it's 0.88. Around 40% increase in poverty hit counts. For poverty gap, it's much more. it's 46% increase in poverty gap and 67% increase in squared poverty gap. It indicates that not only people live under a poverty line, but it indicates also that people or households lost their purchasing power every day and get much more poorer day by day. Or in other words, now the majority of the households have less purchasing power in comparison to before the Taliban. And the last slide is about the determinants of poverty. I use the logit model to estimate these factors. There are some significant parameters for poverty reduction and also to increase the poverty in the household. For example, gender plays an important role for if the household has a male head, so there's a high possibility for them to live above poverty line. And also employment status play also significantly. It affects negatively or it has a negative correlation with poverty. Number of female and also number of male plays a positive role. It's actually the household size, which I consider as number of male and number of female. Both number of male and number of female plays significant role to increase the poverty in the household. If a person actually add to the household, then there's a possibility for this household to live below poverty line.
Ahmad, you have 4 minutes left.
Yes, I will conclude in 4 minutes. Thank you. Number of male employed, it shows a negative correlation between the number of male employed and also the poverty status among the household. Literacy ratio is another significant factor that declines the poverty. Remittances also important for declining the poverty, and access to banking, and the last parameter is the land size, which declines the poverty status among the rural household in the Marmul district. To sum up this presentation and also to relate to the current situation, unfortunately, literacy ratio is an important factor in declining the poverty in Afghanistan, but the current policies, especially for education for women, unfortunately, it may increase the poverty in Afghanistan in the future. And the second factor is the important contribution of women to the household. But the current authorities banned women for working in majority of the organization. I believe this also may negatively impact in the future as well. And for the family planning, it's a major issue still in Afghanistan, unfortunately, and it needs to be discussed and also implement countrywide family planning strategy in Afghanistan, just to have a reasonable family size for Afghanistan, just to decline poverty, because in previous studies also indicates that household size is a significant factor in increasing poverty in Afghanistan. Thank you so much for your time and also for your attention. If you have any question, I would be happy to answer it. Thank you.
Please. So to save time, I'll just accept 2 questions maximum because we're running a little bit late. You can go ahead.
Thank you very much, Ahmad, for your presentation. It was very insightful. My question is about the remittances that you showed in one of your slides. That remittances after the takeover of the country by the Taliban has reduced. How do you think, what are the reasons under that? Because I think right now, like compared to before the Taliban, more Afghans are living abroad, and they are actually helping their families and sending money back. So what are the reasons that the remittances dropped?
For the question, Atefa, you are correct, yeah, and also there is. It doesn't mean that now the Afghan migrants or refugees do not send enough money for their families. The second phase of the survey was conducted only a few months after the collapse, and there is, I believe, there was two issues in that moment. The first issue was the restriction that the Taliban imposed on banking system, because the majority of people have only access to, for example, to withdraw cash from their banks, $200 per week. So if the migrants were sent to their families through banks, then they were only able to get or to withdraw from the bank only a limited amount of the money. And the second issue was a very serious issue, was liquidity issue, because of the banks and the Hawala providers to actually offer remittances to the receivers. So this was the main issues. This was only the lack of cash and also restrictions that caused a significant decline. But the majority of the migrants and the Afghan refugees, I believe, prepared to send more money than before the collapse, because majority of the household lost their income sources and domestic income sources in Afghanistan after the collapse.
Yes, thank you.
Are there more questions? No questions. Thank you, Ahmad.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Okay, our next presenter is Zainab Adib from American University of Central Asia. Zainab, are you online?
Yes.
Okay, great. Can you share your presentation, please?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I am very excited to be here. I am Zainab Adib, a recent graduate from the American University of Central Asia, and the research that I am presenting to you today is the one that I did for my bachelor's thesis. And before presenting my research, I would like to thank LIC committee for giving me this opportunity to present my research. So now I will share my screen. Okay, so my topic is about the short-term effects of active labor market policies of Germany on the employment of Syrian and Afghan refugees for year 2018 and 2020. As you know, that Germany is one of the biggest target countries for refugees in Europe. And you can see on the graph that the number of refugees granted asylum has been increasing since 2014. Only between 2015 and 2016, more than 1 million refugees entered Germany. And 40% of those refugees were Syrians, and Afghans were the second largest population of the refugees. And we know that entering refugees into their host countries do not only bring opportunities, but also bring challenges for the host countries. And one of the challenges for the host countries is integration of the refugees into the labor market. Therefore, countries and also Germany have implemented several policies and programs to help and encourage refugees to participate in the labor force. And one of those programs are called active labor market programs. And despite the fact that these programs exist, there's still a gap between employment rate and unemployment rate of natives and non-natives. And on the graph, you can see that unemployment rate of non-natives is twice higher than unemployment rate of natives. And in 2022, unemployment rate of non-natives was 3 times higher than unemployment rate of natives. And considering non-natives include both refugees and immigrants. And when we are comparing refugees with immigrants, refugees are even having higher unemployment rate. So having these statistics in mind, the question that I want to answer throughout my research is, how do the active labor market policies or programs in Germany affect the employment of Syrian and Afghan refugees? And my aim is, of course, to analyze the effectiveness of those programs. The expected hypothesis would be that active labor market policies improve employment prospects. It is because they reduce such friction and they increases human and social capital and, of course, enhance skills of individuals. So unlike previous studies that considers refugees as a homogeneous group and only use one estimation method, my research takes a novel approach. I'm comparing Syrian and Afghan refugees, and I'm using 2 estimation methods and, of course, a recent data, which is from 2018 and 2020. Before jumping to the next section, I briefly want to introduce you to what the active labor market programs are. Unlike passive labor market policies or programs such as like receiving an employment benefit, like or any other kind of benefit that individuals receive directly from government, these are the programs that encourage and help individuals find gainful employment. And they are grouped into 4. Number 1 is long-term training programs. These are the programs that last longer than 6 months and include vocational training, further vocational training, and long-term internships. And we have short-term programs. These are the programs that last up to 3 months, and they include language training, job training, integration courses, short-term internships. Then we have subsidized employment. This is subsidized employment is a special kind of employment where the wage is partially or fully paid by the government. And job search assistant is, of course, a unique measure that help refugees find jobs that are according to their skills. So we know that labor market is a matching market, and matching market is a market where individuals are matched with one another based on their preferences or other specific criteria rather than price mechanism. And one extended version of the matching market is Diamond, Morton's, and Bissardi's matching model. And their model actually provides a comprehensive framework to analyze the matching process between job seekers and job vacancies in the market, in the job market that is characterized with such frictions. And such frictions refers to the challenges and obstacles that both job seekers and, of course, employers face when they are trying to find each other in the labor market. And that's why we say that active labor market programs reduce the search frictions because they upgrade individuals' skills and they increase human and social capital. Therefore, they lead to higher chances of getting a job or being employed. So actually, there is a very broad range of literature regarding the effectiveness of these programs. And regarding the long-term training programs, most of the literature do approve that they have positive effect. And the reason for that is, of course, we all know that these training programs equip individuals with more skills, or let's say more advanced skills, and that's why they lead to like better job opportunities or higher job chances. However, in the short run, they do have significant lock-in effects. And we say lock-in effect, meaning that when individuals are participating in these programs, they are busy in these programs and they cannot switch between the programs due to the costs or other barriers that is associated with them. That's why they cannot participate in the labor market. Short-term programs, so regarding the short-term programs, the findings are mixed. And one reason for that is because of the specificity and the length of these programs, it is different in each country and the contexts are different. And that can be one reason that there is the results of the literature show differing results. And regarding the employment subsidy is also the results are mixed. And explanation for that can be that actually because of the employers, some employers, like the varying response of employers, some employers may like hire individuals temporarily, and sometimes they might hire individuals into a more stable positions. That's why they can vary, like their effects can be different. And regarding job search assistant, the findings of the literature do approve that they do have positive effect. And yeah, because, you know, like individuals are getting help to find a job that is according to their skills or whatever abilities that they have. So the data that is used in this research is called Refugees in Germany, accompanying evaluation of labor market policy integration measures for refugees. So the first wave of this data was conducted between July 2018 to July 2019. And the second wave was conducted between September 2020 to December 2020. Oops. No. Okay. So most of these refugees who are surveyed, they are the ones who entered Germany during 2015 and 2016. And that's why 61.3% of these refugees are Syrians, and Afghans are like 11.7%, and other nationalities are 26.9%. My God. So as I mentioned previously, I will be using two methods to measure the effectiveness of those programs. Number one is binary choice model, such as logit and probit. And the reason for that is because my dependent variable is a dummy variable, which is labor force participation equal to 1 for people who are in the labor force or who are working, and 0 to those who are not. I'm also using propensity score matching because it allows us to measure average treatment effect on the treated by calculating propensity score, which is actually the probability or the probability that an individual will enroll in a program based on observed characteristics. And in our sample, the treatment group would be the people who are participating in one of those programs, and the control group would be those who have high chances of applying or participating in one of those programs, but are not participating in any of them. So here is the comprehensive model. So my dependent variable is labor force participation, which is equal to 1 for individuals who are working full-time, who are working part-time, who are self-employed, and 0 otherwise. And my variables of interest are short-term program participation, which is also a dummy variable and equal to 1. Actually, this is also an aggregate of like participation in the short-term training programs, which are like integration courses, language courses, skill assessment, and others. And the other one is long-term training programs, which is also an aggregate of vocational training, further vocational training, and this is also a dummy variable. And then the third one is job search assistant, which is also a dummy variable. And then I have subsidized employment, which is also a dummy variable. So these are my variables of interest. And to control for other factors that affect the labor force participation, I have included several sets of controls, such as human capital, social capital, migration-related variables, and demographics, which include unemployment benefit if individuals are receiving, asylum benefit if they are receiving, child benefit, housing benefit, language skills, education in Germany, qualification recognition, residence title, work experience and years in Germany, number of German friends, education abroad, vocational training abroad, gender, age square, if individuals are married, number of children, cultural assimilation, health, life satisfaction, and the last one is year dummy, which controls for the overall macroeconomic conditions. And so after controlling for this, there might be controlling for a broad range of controls. There might be less unobserved heterogeneity left. And for that, one can use random or fixed effect. And I'm using random effect with logit and probit because I also want to get the coefficient for, I want to get the coefficients for time invariant variables. And here on the table, you can see that actually the coefficients, they are average marginal effects from the logit and probit, and they are not very different. So meaning that participating in the short-term programs, they have positive effect and increases probability of labor force participation by 5.83 percentage points. And long-term training program has negative effect. And this is, as I already mentioned, because of the lock-in effects. And we see that job search assistant also has negative effect. And one reason for that can be the COVID-19, and even if the individuals received help, it was through like phone or computer, which can be explained that refugees are on average less educated and they might have struggled with that. And employment, like subsidized employment, do not have effect for this population. Like almost all of the control variables are significant and they are having expected signs. But I'm not going to explain everything because like we are running out of time already. Okay, and the second method that I used is propensity score matching, and I have used kernel matching after like estimating propensity score. I used kernel matching, and this is for overall population average treatment effect on the treated, and you see that this is positive, meaning that if individuals are participating in those programs, they are positively affecting their employment prospect. And for comparison of Syrian and Afghan refugees, I introduced interaction terms for nationality and program participation. So here you see that there is not much differences actually between like Afghan and Syrians, meaning that we reject the null hypothesis, or we, or in other words, we say that nationality and short-term program participation and nationality and long-term program participation are not jointly statistically significant, meaning that the program participation affects both of the nationalities in the same way. And this is also from the average treatment, like from propensity score matching. You can see that for Syrians, this is positive, but for Afghans, this is not significant. And the reason for that is we know that propensity score is like a data hunting method, meaning that we need a lot of observations for it to be accurate. So the conclusion would be that actually these programs do not have like different effect on two nationalities, on Afghans and Syrians. So in the short run, the most effective programs are the short-term programs such as job training, skill assessment, integration courses. However, in the long run, they might not be as effective. And we also saw that like job search assistant was not effective for this population. It was actually negatively affecting employment. And one reason I said was I already mentioned was that because refugees on average are less educated, and they might not have digital literacy, and even if they received help through mobile or through computer, that was not effective. That's why Germany should improve the effectiveness of assisting refugees in finding jobs. And yeah, like I mentioned already, that subsidized employment and subsidies or other like benefits that individuals receive, they actually decreases the probability of employment. That's why government should use them less intensively. Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Zainab. Does anyone have any question? So we're running a little bit late because the next session is about to begin. So I'll just ask one short, quick question. You mentioned you used social capital. So I was wondering, how did you measure it, or if you obtain it readily, how the source measured it?
Actually, by social capital, I mean, for example, how connected are they in the community, in their host communities. And for that, I have used a number of German friends, which can be social capital. Like if one person has a German friend, that will be, of course, like that will increase the probability of finding a job. And that's one variable that accounts for social capital. I have also included cultural assimilation. It means that how close do they feel? How close do they feel to the German culture? And that can also be one variable to show the social capital.
Great. Thank you so much. This was a really interesting presentation. Thank you so much to all of our presenters today and the audience members as well. Thank you.
Thank you.